Hey guys, Adam here with Indy Farm Life. About to embark on building a floating dock for the pond behind me. It's not full enough yet to put our beach area in. We want to get out there and start using the water, so putting in a floating dock. And while I walk over here to show you guys all the materials we have pulled together to put this thing together, hit that subscribe button. If you're not already a subscriber of our channel, we'd love to have you guys along for the ride. Always doing stuff with the tractors and backhoe and chainsaws and you name it. And of course this pond. So hit that subscribe button and stick around for a while. And as the title of the video suggests, we are using 55-gallon drums to float this. The little last guy there's a little dirty. And there are a number of reasons why we are doing so. A, they are cheaper. I ran these down on Craigslist from a guy selling each one, I think, for $15 a barrel. B, they are more durable than the square pond floats, and there's other videos out there. Rolling Barge, for example, they make kits to use with these barrels. They have some videos out there of beating these things with hammers, and it's pretty impressive how these hold up versus the square ones. I mentioned cost, sorry. The pond floats, when you buy to go underneath a floating dock, at least $40, but I think closer to like $70 per one. So yeah, significant savings. And the third, and I think most important reason, is since the barrels are round, when ice tries to adhere to them, the dock will actually float up or push up out of the ice, and it won't crush the floats. If you have a square float underneath it, the ice will actually smash it, and you'll come back next spring to a dock at the bottom of the pond or lake. So with these, you don't have to take it out of the water. And the way I'm going to build this thing, you're not going to want to take it out of the water because it's going to easily be 2,000 pounds or so. So the barrel's underneath, and then going to skirt the outside of it with 2x12s. And then my joists are going to be 2x10s, and we're going to actually deck it with composite. A little bit more expensive, but no maintenance. It's going to take a beating in the sun out here, splinters and the like. So if we're going to build it right. So I'll do my best to kind of walk you guys through the build process and stop and check in and show you where things are. I'm not going to video every nail and screw that go into this thing. That'd be a little excessive, and this will at least be enough to detail how we're building this thing and allow you to copy our plans if you want to. 16x16 is the finished size of this thing. And then ultimately going to be putting a handrail or deck railing around it so kids can't fall in the water, and we can go out there, close it up, have a canopy. I'm excited. It's going to be awesome. So let's get to work. I think I'm going to do my best to kind of build this thing somewhere out near the overflow and get it close to the water so that we're not going to have to haul it a long way to get it in once it's built. Or halfway built, rather. Guess you could always use the backhoe. So I did a little work off camera, as I said I would. And how about that workbench there? It's nice. You have to pardon my loader creaking. I don't know why my curl cylinder's leaking down, but anyway, I have my 2x12s cut to length, 2 at 16, and then 2 3 inches shy. Make a perfect 16-foot square. And then I cut these. I had this old pressure-treated post out in my barn. So I cut those. I'm going to use those in the corners and lag bolt the corners together just to give it a little bit more rigidity before I start dropping the joists in. And then grabbed a couple scrap pieces of block and cinder block to keep it up off the ground as I work. One thing you guys want to do when you're cutting these pressure treated boards is be sure to coat the ends with a water sealer. And it's in an old Amazon peanut butter jar here because the Thompson water seal jug was a little bit too tight to get a brush in there, but get a brush and be sure to put some of that on the cut ends to keep the water out. Since you cut it and expose the edge, water has the ability to make its way in there. Otherwise, you're good to go. So I did that on my cuts. Slow going, but it's some pretty big lumber to work with by yourself. So if you're doing this by yourself, what I did, and I have my workstation relatively close to the pond, these runs here are the shorter end, so they're the 3-inch shorter pieces. So the joists are going to be running the same way as these are. So I'll end cap it with my full 16-foot pieces, and then I'll have joists running across, and then each joist will have a sleeve of barrels. So there'll be about 4 barrels running across there. So once I drop in that joist out there, I can push it out with barrels in it, you know, just kind of work its way into the water. But what I did here was put that 5x5, well 6x6, a 5.5x5.5 block in there, and just clamped it in and nailed it flush with some 16 penny nails. I'll come back and put lag screws in it. But now I just got to put my end pieces on, and then I'll have my full block and I can start laying in joists. I have, of course, picked probably one of the hottest days of the year so far to do this, so I'm about ready to jump in the pond. The joist part will be a little slow too, because I want to stop and make sure the barrels tuck up in there nicely. Once I do the first one, the rest of them should go pretty fast. So I got both the end cap pieces on. One thing to make sure you do is check to make sure that your diagonals measure the same distance once you're done, to make sure you're square all around. Now I'm going to drop in a couple joists. I say that like it's going to be quick. Nothing's quick. So I got one joist in there, but as I was getting ready to drop it in, I realized that the nails that I had, which were 10-penny, 3-inch, too long for the hanger to sit just on the one 2x12 there. So I doubled up, put another 2x10 on both sides to have more nailing room. And then I got one joist set, and they're 24 inches on center, so 22.5-inch opening for a 23-inch barrel. So I think that's what I read online other people have done and worked well. And I test fitted with one of these barrels here, and it seemed to tuck down there nice and snug. You know, the barrel flexes a little bit to make it fit in that smaller opening, but this lumber is so wet that that spacer right there just popped right out. So I think I'm going to stop for today and switch to screws and screwing this thing in. I don't want this green lumber being a pain, so more to come. So Chris and Nick popped out to help me, which is greatly appreciated. Nick's driving in. We've got 1/2-inch, 5-inch lag screws going in, so he's putting those in. And then I actually moved this joist, instead of doing the 22.5 I was doing yesterday, into 22 even. I saw a guy on YouTube who did his at 21.5, but I dry fit that and thought that was a little tight, so 22 it is. Again, the barrel diameter is 23, so it should be pretty snug. Want a sledge?
Sure, got one.
Yeah? Pro tip for all you guys out there: if you're having trouble with your long runs here being a little bit warped and the joist's not sitting quite tight, if you happen to have any 27-foot ratchet straps laying around like we do, use it to draw things up. Works out really well. Now we're moving barrels out to our work site. I have 4 here. Chris and Nick kind of look like they're working for maybe a cartel or something. So we have all of our joists in, and the initial plan is to run 4 barrels in that channel there, the 2 at the end, and then 4 barrels in the middle. So we'll have a total of 20 barrels, which should be plenty of buoyancy. But we went ahead and built another channel here and one to the right as well. And we needed that joist in there anyway to help span the decking. So we figured, let's make one the same size as what the others are for holding barrels. And if we don't have enough buoyancy, we'll pull this out with the backhoe and drop a few in. So this is pretty well done for now. I just cut a bunch of 22-inch cross braces to brace it out this way as we drop the barrels in. And then up here, Chris and Nick, as you saw hauling, are fixing up our barrels. So these have a rubber gasket in them behind the bung anyway. Yeah, they're over there making jokes at me, but they get to enjoy the fruits of their labor later whenever this pond duck's floating. But anyway, take the bungs off. We're using pipe dope to glue them. So the cleaner, then the purple primer, and the glue. This is our station here, and then top it. Yeah, and then top it off with some caulk, still 100% silicone, of course. And they're going to be pros. So if you guys are doing this and you have a large scale operation, I'll rent these guys to you on an hourly basis. You just let me know what you need. Also, a reminder: when you're cutting your pressure treated lumber, be sure to seal the ends of your cuts. And so I know I showed this earlier. This is my little jar of Thompson water seal with a paintbrush in there. Got a fair amount of the blocking in, ran short on lumber because we had to scab the outsides of the 2x12, so got to get more of that, but it looks pretty good. It's really heavy, and we have a mountain of barrels ready to roll. So the next steps will be to start dropping barrels in up there and finish the blocking, and then push this thing out in the water. And we're probably going to deck it out there because, yeah, we have a backhoe, but this thing's getting really heavy. So we have all the blocking done, and it's starting to look pretty finished. Put that ratchet strap on there just to square up the entire thing, you know, making sure the measurements on the diagonals are the same, and they are now, so all good there. The next steps though, I'm actually going to put some pressure treated 2x4 in between these runs where the barrel sits. So when we put these things together, steel these barrels up that day, it's pretty hot, and these barrels have already started to collapse on themselves a little bit just from the temperature difference. So the end that doesn't have the ring to it can actually slip through our opening on there. So the 2x4 on the other end should help keep it in place until we get the decking on. Well, we're getting things set up to start floating this. Nick and I got all the, call them barrel gussets or barrel struts in, those 2x4s you can see. We got Chris pulling up on the 4105 to help out. We're gonna lift both sides. We're gonna chain it with the tractors and barrel, and basically lift somewhere back in here, get the edge out over the water, and stuff barrels under the first 2 rows and kind of float it and just slowly work our way out. Well, we got the front end floating. Took a little longer than we thought it would, but had to crawl in there and help put those barrels underneath and try to orient the bungs the right way. Honestly, water shoes were clutch, but man, the sediment right there, whew. I can probably get one on this side. And that's how you build a floating dock. It requires lots of lumber, barrels, and a really big tractor. Or 2. Or 2. All right, so I'm finally ready to start decking this thing. I pulled my truck over here, just backed the trailer down by the water instead of having to move everything twice. Those aren't super heavy, but they're real flimsy, floppy, so they're hard to carry. So I figured just work smarter, not harder. So chuck the tires on the trailer just for good measure, and then tied off the floating dock to the trailer so it won't float out on us. It's also still moored here to the overflow, although that'd probably get some clicks, wouldn't it? Case 580K backhoe tows Ram 1500 and PJ trailer out of pond. Probably gonna start out at the far end, work my way back. They're gonna run left to right. I've been shooting this video over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, so I don't even know what I mentioned to you guys, but at one point I was considering just screwing through the top of these deck boards and foregoing the hidden fasteners because, well, they were about double the cost of screws. And then I thought more about it and realized that's silly to put holes in a composite deck that otherwise would be perfect and not have any water penetration over time. So going with the hidden fasteners, and I'm also going to forego putting anything down these extra compartments down here. Again, I want to have a smooth surface for the kids and whatnot, not stubbing toes and having cuts. So having a cut and then lift up would just make no sense, given that A, this thing's already massive, and B, I don't want cut feet. Let me tell you guys, this Trex decking goes down fast. Just like that, I'm done. Except I'm not. I just laid them all out there so I had a walking surface, because I didn't really feel like dropping my drill in the water. Also, another important thing you're going to need to have when you're doing this, a towel to kneel on, because, let's see, stuff gets pretty hot. 115, 128. Did I see 170? No way. 128 was the max, but some of these have been in the shade too, because they were covered up. But this stuff's pretty simple, at least per the instructions. we'll see. Made decent progress this afternoon. Got probably a quarter of it done or so. Getting into a rhythm's a big part. But if you guys have never laid this composite decking, it's not too bad, honestly. I was gonna, like I said, gonna screw through the top, and I thought that was silly, but so you start your first run using these little, I call them clips. You basically put this down in the joist and then just slide the board, because it has a lip, into it. So I have those out here on the south side edge. As I drop my camera in the water, I don't know if you can even see them. There's one right there. And then literally you just run it like you would a laminate floor. You start setting these little T clips in, as I'll call them. Let me show you. Better lighting. So there you go. You put it in, it pins one side down, and then you slide another board in, and then you don't suck it down all the way to begin with. You kind of let it float so you can get the second board in, then you cinch it down and go. Another thing you probably should have on hand as you're doing this, and I guess if your deck is 100% square and you have no issues, then this isn't a big deal, but some shims. So you can see there in the middle, I shimmed quite a bit of this as I went through, just to kind of keep things level. This is a farm pond dock. It's not for Grand Plaza Hotel. All right, guys, there she is. What do you think? Still have to finish up this end over here. One of those 4x4s, or 5, I guess it was 6x6. One of those 6x6s in the corner down there is a little high, so I need to get my multi-tool out and shave it down. But by and large, I'd say it's pretty well complete. Looks pretty good. It's a little wavy in spots. We had one of our joists that had kind of, somehow the joist hanger got set a little low, and so there's a dip there, and it kind of waves a little bit. This stuff's only supposed to be 16 inches on center. We're more like closer to 24 or 22 and a half, I believe. So it does have some play and flex. If you use normal deck boards, it probably would have tightened everything up a little bit better. But honestly, in the grand scheme, I'll take a little bit of waviness, a little play in the deck. It's solid. This thing's not going anywhere. But now we don't have to worry about maintenance or splinters in the kids' feet, which would be a nice benefit. So if you're on the fence about using deck boards versus this composite board, I would do it. Maintenance free. It's nice. It does get pretty hot though. I actually got the gun out a second time after I showed you guys, and I clocked it yesterday at 137 degrees in the afternoon sun, so be cognizant of that. But once I close up this end here, and I may have to scab the outside or do something, because I'm like half a board. I don't know if I want to rip one of those, but once that's done, it's getting a railing. So this is where I will part with you and say thanks for checking out this video. If you guys have any questions about building a pond dock or want more information on what we did, this isn't the end-all be-all of how to build one. This is just what we did, and so far it seems to be working out well for us. Now, if you do decide to build one of this size, I would encourage you to have a plan to how to get it in the water. As you saw, we used 2 tractors to pick this thing up and get it in the water. And by the time I put this deck board on here, I bet this thing weighs almost 4,000 pounds. And we've got about 9,500 pounds of buoyancy in total, so I think we're sitting pretty well. And obviously that 4,000 pounds will drop quite a bit as this pressure treated lumber dries out. But if you would, hit that subscribe button down below. Much more to come out here at the pond and around the farm. Isn't this thing beautiful? Time to go enjoy it. Take care, guys. See you next Tuesday at 9.